I had a quite interesting discussion with another so-called black woman, very beautiful black woman. And we were talking about the different women of different cultures and how men make their women feel beautiful, men make their women feel special, and how if you look at different nations of women like the Asians and like the Brazilians and the Mexicans and the Latinos and the Dominicans, all of these nations of women, when they present themselves, and I know you have those that don't look so nice, they're overweight, masculine, but as a whole, they have so many beautiful women, and the men encourage the beauty of those women. Even when it comes to the so-called black American women, when they have the drum line, these celebrations like at the black universities, you see the black cheerleaders, those women are gorgeous. When you see the Jamaican parade and they're dressed in the attire, a lot of those women are beautiful. So you have different nations putting their women up front and they're gorgeous, they're desirable. But when you look at the women from Africa, from the continent of Africa, these women look run down. They seem oppressed, not being oppressed by the so-called white man or by the so-called government, but they're beat down and depressed by their own men. Why is it that the African men from the continent find other nations of women more beautiful? They treat other nations of women with more respect than they do their own women. Whenever you see an African woman from the continent, she's got all of these cuts on her face, these tribal marks, or she's got rings and bones through her nose. Her hair is wild, or she's walking and she's got like a baby in a pouch. Now, you have Asian women that have the babies in the pouch or on their back, but they're beautiful. They have their Asian attire on, their dresses, the Oriental dresses, and they look nice. They present themselves as young ladies or as women. But when you look at the women from Africa, they look oppressed. You may have a few that look nice or have the potential to be beautiful, but for the most part, the African men keep their women oppressed. They don't appreciate the beauty in their women. And I even hear that African men prefer women that's overweight, that's unattractive. And I think in many cases, they keep their women unattractive so that no other man would find them attractive and take them from them. That's like their own insecurity. But when they come to America, they fall head over heels for white women, other nations of women, even the so-called black American woman, because even she has beauty within herself. She know how to display her beauty. Although we talk about a lot of so-called black American women that have become masculine, aggressive, and violent, what makes them unattractive to men. And then they tat up their bodies. Their whole bodies are tatted up. But when you look at the women from Africa, and I had even questioned a couple of young brothers, just random dudes walking down the street, and I had asked him, I said, let me ask you a question. And I was with this young lady that I was discussing this with. And I said, let me ask you a question. I said, would you date an African woman, a woman that's from the continent? And they were like, yes and no, maybe. And I said, why not? And the response I got back was, because they stink. Now, that's unfortunate for them to say that. And it may seem like it's cruel for them to say that. And many of y'all would even say that they hate themselves or they've been conditioned to hate themselves. But are they being truthful to how they perceive women from the continent? Now, I've seen a couple of women from the continent that look nice, but they don't carry themselves as ladies. They don't, it's almost like they're conditioned not to appreciate their beauty. They're conditioned to not appreciate their beauty. But their men will come to America or go to the UK or maybe France and go crazy over their women and would even tell them how beautiful they are. But do they tell their own women from the continent that they're beautiful? Look at all the images of African women that we see in the media, we see on social networking, and even the wives of Africans that come here from the continent. They're covered up, they look run down, and to be honest, they look stank. Many of them look stank. And I mean no disrespect when I say that. I'm just being honest with it. They don't look too attractive. And I know, and I mean no disrespect when I say this. I've been in elevators with some African women, right? That's from the continent. And they need to use deodorant. They really need to start, they need to get with American women, and the American women should encourage them to use deodorant, you know, to bathe themselves and use deodorant and maybe some perfume. Because I've gotten in the elevators with some African women and their underarm, man, was kicking, man. It was worse than a skunk smell. You ever ride down the street or come outside when a skunk finished spraying something and like that scent is like thick in the air, you know, and it's really strong? That's how the underarm of some African women, I said some, because I have not been around all African women, but I've been around African women. And when you're trapped inside an elevator with an African woman that have strong underarm pits, and even a lot of the dudes, man, even a lot of the African dudes, man, that's from the continent, got strong African underarm. You know, I mean, it sounds cruel, but I don't mean it to be cruel, you know. And I mentioned in a video in the past, man, like where I was walking down in an area, man, like where, you know, you find the majority of African people now right here locally, right? It's like a sanctuary city. And it's in a place where a lot of blacks used to occupy, man. A lot of low-income blacks used to occupy the bricks. And now you have a lot of people from the continent, you know, in Ethiopia and stuff like that. And I've witnessed, man, I've seen dudes, man, that just stop. And maybe they're used to that where they came from. Maybe they're used to that where they came from. But I've seen dudes squat in the middle of the sidewalk, man, and take a dump. And I'm thinking, like, I'm sure they have a bathroom in their apartment. And maybe they don't know how to use the bathroom. You know, see, people are quick to refer to you as ignorant. You know, you have people that, and I think a lot of times it's Americans under troll accounts, and they say, I'm African, or I'm from Africa, and you're ignorant. But it's like, maybe you should teach a lot of your people, man, how to use the toilet. And let them know that you don't stop in the middle of the sidewalk, man, and take a dump, right? But again, maybe that's a cultural thing, right? Maybe it's a cultural thing. Maybe I've lived in America for so long and I'm used to the white man's way, And I'm being sarcastic when I say that. But I did not grow up to take a dump in the sidewalk. And a lot of black Americans can't really talk, man, because you let your kids, man, especially dudes, man, you start urinating outside against a tree. Now, I seen dogs pee against a tree. And you got black females now that take pictures of their kids, their little sons, and they're posting it on Facebook of their kids peeing against a tree. And they think it's funny. They think it's cute, right? But that's the so-called black American females. But me and this young lady was talking about how African women from the continent are oppressed by their own men. Their own men refuse to acknowledge or notice the beauty if they have beauty. And I'm not talking about that internal beauty or spiritual beauty. I'm talking about that outwardly beauty, like where when they come out the house, they dress ladylike. They dress like they love themselves. But instead, they look like workhorses, man. Their men treat them like workhorses. You stay home. You take care of the kids. You're not supposed to look beautiful for another man, right? And you have African dudes, man, for some reason they prefer the more to love women. When you see the bulk of African women, man, a lot of them are overweight, man. But the dudes seem to love them. And I guess that's all that matters. But my question is, why don't African men from the continent encourage the beauty in their women? Why don't they compliment their women, man? You know, why don't you treat your woman? You're quick to say that your woman's a queen, especially so-called black American men. You're quick to say your woman is a queen, but you find a queen in other races of people and not your own. But African women, and I keep coming back to that because that's the real topic that I'm trying to talk about, but it's like African men don't appreciate their women's beauty, and they don't encourage their women to be beautiful. They don't encourage their women that when you step outside the house, you're beautiful. You represent me. You represent the family. So when people see you, they see me. See, and a woman really can't go as far as her man allows her to go, right? And if she decides to go ahead of her man, then you're going to see that. You're going to see she's got no kind of respect for her men. But the women from the continent are oppressed by their men. Their men don't want them to be beautiful. Their men want to keep his foot, figuratively speaking, and in many cases, in reality, keep his foot on her neck, right? So, excuse me. Y'all feedback and tell me what you think, man. And especially you Pan-Africans out there, man, that talk about how African women are beautiful and they're from the continent. A lot of y'all claim you want to move back to the continent and all this other nonsense, right? But why is it that African men oppress their own women? And you have, and the same applies for so-called black American women, right? But when they have something like Juneteenth and they have these parades, a lot of times they have some very sexy women out there, man, displaying their women. Just like in Asia, when I was watching this Kung Fu movie and I'm looking at these Asian women and how their hair is all neat. And I know that's just television, but their hair, and I see this in real life, where the Asian women are beautiful. A lot of them are beautiful, right? And they present themselves in a beautiful way. Same with Dominican women and Puerto Rican women. You got a lot of black men now going for Puerto Rican women. And I'm going to end this video because it may run out. This card that's inside always cuts off on me. But why don't African men from the continent, you know, encourage their women to be more beautiful? Why don't you tell your woman you're beautiful? So that she would start feeling good about herself and how she present herself when she come outside in the public. Because them African women be looking rough, man. They be having babies, carrying them, and they be overweight, and and buckets on their heads, and tribal scars all over their face, and that's not attractive at all, man. That's not beauty at all. I understand culture, man, but I don't want my woman to be scarred up, man, like that. It's like somebody gave her $150, man, all over her face. And y'all be looking at that like, oh, this my woman. And you don't, it's like you don't appreciate your woman. Why is that? So feedback, tell me what you think. Subscribe, comment, share the video, and click on the Cash App button and donate to this channel. Until next time, I'm fearless.